All right, what is going on, everyone, and welcome back to another Black Desert video. So it's 2026, and I wanted to update one of my older videos that people actually ask me a lot of, which is my settings and UI settings. So a lot of new players probably have no idea. One frequently asked question that I get is, how do you get your UI like this? And that'll be covered in this. But anyway, with that said, this game is one of the weirdest ones because as a new player going in for the first time, you're probably going to be seeing a lot of weird notifications at the top. You're probably going to see some random stuff at the bottom. And so your UI is probably confusing, and that's what we're trying to fix today. So with that said, before we do anything, let's just go over the in-game settings, and then after that, we'll talk about other things to help you improve your FPS, things that I would tweak personally. And so, yeah, with that said, there's a lot of things, but the first thing you should do as a new player is probably go down to your general settings, and you see all these alerts. I think most of these are on by default, and you want to turn them off until you think you need it, and then you turn it on. And yeah, because you're just going to see random pop-ups of like, this item has been sold for X amount. This person has enhanced the thing, and realistically, no one cares. So just turn all these off. All right, so with that said, we'll get into all these settings, but with that said, let's go into the performance and settings, and let's just go down the list. So for graphics and textures, I play on high, very high. I personally think that remastered is a little bit too bright for me. I don't think it's bad. It actually looks good, but it's just a little bit bright for me. Ultra, it just tells you it's more for like taking screenshots and everything. And I know some people that actually play in Ultra, but also FPS is also important. And the reason why I do this is also as a content creator, I generally try to have a balance between performance and not looking terrible in the game. And a lot of people play on the lowest settings for maximum FPS and performance. I think that's fine. But as a creator, I also think that the visuals are, very important in the game as well. So this is kind of like the balance that I would do. Remastered, it takes a little bit of a hit, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's not that bad. It's just bright. Ultra, realistically, you just probably advise against it. So even the game recommends not doing it. Anti-aliasing, I choose FXAA. I believe if you play on remastered, you're forced into TAA, but anything under that you aren't. And I just think this looks a lot nicer. TAA kind of looks grainy and less sharp, in my opinion. That goes for every game, not just Black Desert. So I generally just try to use this one. Not having an anti-aliasing is also fine too, but I just think this one looks nice. Other settings I have, as we all know, shadows are very intense in video games in general. Realistically, most people aren't looking at it unless you're doing screenshots in particular or something that realistically needs it. So for most people, this is an FPS saver a little bit. You realistically won't notice much of a difference. Display clarity, that's important. You want to have this one on, like the balance of looking nice. Far away objects, it's whatever. Depth of field, this one is realistically more for screenshots, and if you want to see a difference, it's just like hit your Control U or equivalent. So you see how the background is clear with that one? That's what it looks like. And then if you had the setting on, it's just like, how when you're taking a picture and there's like the background is blurry, but the like focus is on you, so that's what it is. So that's what I have. Far away NPCs, display far away NPCs more clearly. FPS saver, if you have it turned off, all the relevant NPCs that you want to see on will always be there. But like, let's say just random NPCs that are walking around, like, you don't need to see that like from far away. So I just turn that off. It'll save you a lot of FPS, trust me. Hit effect, you want this to be on just because you could see when you're getting hit. That's pretty important. Snow buildup, literally for winter seasons only when it's snowing. So FPS saver as well. Optimization. If you're like gaming on a low-end PC or something, you probably want to turn this on and scoot this all the way up to 60. Upscaling. So this, in theory, is actually good, but you know how the Fidelity FX and the FSR, right now they have a higher version, like what is it, 4.0, and Black Desert hasn't updated theirs in literally years. So to be honest, I don't think it's really worth it if you have like a modern computer these days, but like this is better than nothing if you need it. But yeah, just know that there's like a 4.0 or something in other things, and there's other ways to turn this on, but that requires like third parties, and it's just like the one issue I had with this back in the day was when I was jumping down to Magnuswell, and it would become like extremely bright when you're jumping down, and I didn't know what was causing it. It was that setting from when I had this on, so I just don't have it applied. Low power option, turn off to improve the game's performance. Yeah, you kind of want to, if this is the only thing you're doing, it just improves performance, so you want to turn this one off in general. So hit and miss, if this is the same thing in graphics and textures, you want to have those on. Effect optimization, I personally prefer performance if I were to have that on, but ultimately it's not a big deal. Adventures, depending on if you are PvPing, you kind of want to have this one on or off, depending on what you're doing. But if you're just like life skilling or something, this is really irrelevant. Hide other adventures. This setting doesn't work as you expect it to. So you can have this on but still see people. The way it works is, let's say you're at bosses like Garmoth or something, and there's 100 people. That's when it'll kick in. But it doesn't just hide NPC or like other players and everything just in town when there's not that many. So it's like an automatic thing. You can manually toggle it. I believe it's something like Control F5 or something. You could change that. But either way, this is one, there's only a lot of people in a certain area, and so I think it's just overall good. Camera vision range. We all know the setting as field of view, so you kind of like just across the board you want to have this at max, because like field of view at 0 is zoomed in, 100 see as far as you can. So field of view reduces motion sickness and everything. Also, being able to see more in general is better than not, so in theory everyone should have this at max. Camera effect, intensity of camera effects is like shaking and everything. Just don't care. Personal preference. Workers and pets, you really don't need to see any of this, and it's irrelevant. You can just kind of know. All right, display settings. I personally play in full screen windowed just because I tab out a lot, and I just kind of want to make sure I'm doing that, and also because I record videos, so I have to make sure to monitor everything on my second. If you're not a content creator or you're just gaming and this is the only thing you do, full screen will give you higher FPS in general. But yeah, windowed full screen is not really that much different. Then I play in 4K. You guys have seen all the videos. UI scaling, I would say keep it at 100 for most people. This one, it's kind of different for people who play in 4K or like ultra wide monitors. It's actually very small, so like scaling past like 150 is very like it gets kind of texture loss, and 125 seems like the best median, so that like things are still sharp, but it's not like small enough where you aren't seeing anything. So yeah, display quality is the same thing as this one, as we were talking about before. See, yeah, nothing. This setting is exactly the same as what we saw in performance. Effects, you know, this is actually one of the unique things that Black Desert has that a lot of other MMOs don't, where you can set it to like vibrant or like any other background. So like, for example, like if you do that, there's actually a lot of settings, believe it or not, and the best ones I would recommend are either none for like the more natural, or like you know, vibrant is, in my opinion, the nicest one. This makes it look natural, and that or none is my opinion the best ones to choose. Brightness and contrast is, I personally have set mine to that one before, so that's what I had, and then it just auto changes when you set things differently. So anyway, effect opacity, this is what it looks like. So basically, here's how you can see. You see like the water effects on this horse right here, like how it does textures. If you have it at max, you see how there's like a water glow at the bottom. That's what you're seeing. And then skill effects go off, like you see how that was a full thing. And like your skill effects, that's what it looks like. Now I want to show you if you were to set it at like the minimum you can. You see how the water glow is basically very non-existent or minimal? That's the difference. So in my opinion, after tweaking this for so long for most people, or like over the years, I think around 75 all the way up to 100 is probably the best, so you can see skill effects going off as well. And also, you know, being able to see visuals in like dungeons, PvE stuff, mechanics going off. I personally leave mine at like 95. I think it's fine. Realistically, between like 90 to 100 is very like unnoticeable. It's very minimal noticing. And color vision aid, this is one thing that I'm actually very happy that this game has. I personally don't need to use it, but a lot of other MMOs and just games don't have color vision modes for the people who do need it, so I think this is actually very nice. Unfortunately, I couldn't really tell you what they do, but you know how sometimes like you have the dark rift going on, right? And then like this will start glowing red, and then you see this how it's glowing red here. I believe having a different one changes it to blue, so like people who have the color vision will see something different. Unfortunately, I don't know how to describe it properly, but it just changes the colors of like the effects on certain things so people can see it. Yeah, that's that. Camera graphics, 100 vision range, field of view. All right, so listen, this is something that's really important. If you plan on being a Black Desert content creator or anything, you see how there's a lot of intensity of camera effects. This is like screen shake, motion blur, and like vibration when you're like, it's like it shakes when you use a skill. You want to turn all of these off. Trust me when I say I have seen so many videos of people like doing montages. That's like probably the only time that's kind of acceptable. But if you're a content creator, guess what people don't want? Motion sickness and like screen shake all the time and motion blur. So you want to turn all these off. If you're not a content creator and you like that, it's fine. But if you are planning on making videos or streaming, you just want to turn all these settings off. I guarantee you people will like thank you for that later. Screenshot, all these personal preference, just PNG is better, like the highest quality, and then that's it. Okay, audio. So for all my videos in the past multiple years, this is exactly what you guys are hearing. And yeah, that's about it. So if it's ever too quiet or too like loud, just let me know. I can always tweak it, but this is the settings that I have always used for the past years. Here's a few things that I would recommend turning down. So you see, you know your fairy? Sometimes back in the day, I was like, just hearing random voices. That sounds weird, by the way. But it's your fairy talking to you. And I'm like, where's that sound coming from? Turns out it's your fairy, just in case you were wondering. Most of the time, if you don't really need voice chat in the game except for like AOS, Arena of Solare, like PvP stuff. But 99% of the time, if you're doing like Node Wars or anything, everyone's in Discord or equivalent. So yeah, the only time you would need this is really just Arena of Solare, and then it tells you just turn it on in the thing anyway. So just turn that up or down. But aside from that, yeah, this is what I have, personal preference. Okay, quality of life and general settings. These are where the fun things begin. Aim assistance. Honestly, it's better to just have this on. Like, I personally I have noticed the difference. Like, you know how when you're using a skill and you're trying to target something, and sometimes, like, let's say for example, I'm trying to airstrike into an enemy, and then, like, that's very minimal when you want to have the aim assistant off so it doesn't target something random. But I would say 99% of the time, it's probably just better to have it on. I've played for years with it off and then on, and overall, it's just whatever. Combat assistance is literally a new player thing. Separatable quick slots. This is the one where people are like, how do you get your bars like this? This is off by default. You want to turn this on. And we'll talk about the UI scaling and everything in a second. Simplified. This is for people who don't like messing with their settings and you just want the default. Just turn that on. Otherwise, more customization is generally better. Screensaver is just good to have, so it doesn't, especially for people with like OLED monitors. You just want to turn this on so it doesn't like burn in as quickly. This is actually one thing that they didn't have by default years ago, which I think is good for people who don't have the horse whistle or flute thingy. So like after you complete a quest, you're like, oh, I have to call my horse again, and sometimes the horse is like in the middle of nowhere. You should just have this on. It's good. Now this setting for the font, a lot of people have asked me, oh, like what font do you play in? I literally just play in the default one. I have heard from questions people have asking me, and if you play on like the C server or just not the NAEU, I believe you either have a different option, like you have a third option, or you don't have this one. I know there's a way to change your font into custom ones. I've never done it, but I've seen other people do it. So I couldn't tell you how to do it, but I know you can. This is the one I play on. So for all of you who are like, oh, how do you get your like text and everything like that? I literally just play on default. I think some of my guildies have different ones, and you just Google a video on how to do it. I will say, if you do have a custom font though, just keep in mind sometimes it causes random crashes, and if you don't know, if you're like crashing randomly and you have a custom font, that could be it. So I know some other content creator friends that had that issue, and for like the longest time they had no idea it was the font. Okay, so show and hide. A lot of things, realistically, all these are personal preference. This is what you want. Let's see, are there any important ones that you should probably have on? I just like seeing all this. I don't hide. I don't show the fairy, just like I don't need to see that. And then, yeah, really all this is personal preference. I think down here, defense icons are very important. Showing all of these are pretty important as well. And so like these are important icons to learn. So the one on the left, the one that looks like that means you are invincible, essentially. The middle one is super armor. That means you cannot get CC'd, and well, like CC'd full 360 around you. And then the shield one is forward guard. You can't get CC'd in front of you. It's good to learn, just because like you see this icon right here. When you're doing things, you kind of want to know what skills are protected and which ones aren't. So it'll just help you learn whether you're PvEing, PvPing. That's also important, and finding out like what your things are. So yeah, just having those icons on, it'll teach you what your skills do, and it just helps you learn. Yeah, okay. So next, we talked about this in the beginning. My recommendation, turn all of these off and then slowly turn them on if you think you need them. Because let's be honest, no one needs to see off all of these. And if I were to say there's anything that's important to have on, probably for Central Market and notifications, because it'll pop up something like down here and it'll just tell you like, oh, this like an order you have placed is getting listed. You should probably do something. So yeah, Central Market is probably the important one. Notifications, if you want to. I personally am at the point in the game where the things I want are so specific that, you know, I will get notified if I needed it. Most of these are just, yeah, it's irrelevant. Turn these on if you want to see notifications at the top of your screen. If you don't, doesn't matter. World map. Okay, let's talk about this one. This one is very important, especially for all of you content creators out there and people who like making guides. So this is what your map looks like by default, right? You see how you're just looking straight at it. You ever see or read a guide somewhere where it's like showing you, okay, so this is where you're supposed to go, but then like this is what you should see by default, right? Here's what some other content creators and just like guides that I've read do. It's like, okay, so you're looking at this thingy, but it's at like a 40-degree angle, and you're like, this is like the least helpful thing I've ever seen in my life. We all know, if you've been playing this game for a while, you see videos, you're like, wait, what is this screenshot? Where am I going? And then it's like zoomed in at like the most weird direction. Okay, so here's what you do. Just keep it at default. You could zoom in, but like don't change the angle, just show it what everyone else sees, and then you're good to go. So like by default, you should see your normal map and then zoom in to where it should be. Stop changing the angles, it's weird. So yeah, world map, just keep it at like the default. Everything at default. You don't need to change the angle at different degrees. It's weird. Save camera angles and everything, just leave that off. If you're just playing by yourself and you are not making guides or anything, do whatever you want. But once it starts like trying to help other people, the default is what we all have. All this personal preference, miscellaneous. So if people have asked me, how do you get your border like this? That's how. I've kept mine into summer season for the past like 5 or 6 years since this came out. In case you were wondering how to get the border, that's what it is. So, I mean, they all look nice. I just really don't care to change it. This is what I've had for years, and it's probably going to keep it like that. A navigation guide. I actually personally think that guide arrows is probably the best one. So here's the difference. The guide arrows, let's say you want to mark something. This is what it looks like. It tells you the arrows. If you have a fairy on, like you'll have a fairy that's just like pointing to the direction. You're better off just keeping this one by default because it literally just tells you where to go. Whereas something's like, here, go there. And they're like, who cares? So, yeah, guide arrow is probably the best one. Navigation path. So here's what the difference of these are. If you want the thing to tell you exactly how to get there, even if it's crossing mountains or going on some weird terrain, this is what you want. Smooth will take you maybe the longer route, but you won't get stuck on things. Like let's say you're trying to auto path over here. This will take you, let's actually pick some weird spot. So this is the best way to get there, but you see how if we're going up a mountain, it kind of like you see how there's a straight line versus the designated path where there's dots? This will take you there the fastest way. However, you have to cross a mountain to get up. The smooth path will take you in a different route, maybe a little bit longer, but you won't get stuck on all like walls and stuff. In theory, that's how it works. Same thing for water, exact and smooth. This one is actually important for people who are bartering, like semi-AFK. So let's say you are starting at Ilia Island, right? And you're just trying to barter. It'll take you to different spots. Like you can click the barter icon for all this and then that. Sometimes there are like random rocks and like stuff in the ocean that you'll get stuck on randomly. So I actually think that smooth is probably the best one. That one. And everything else is personal preference. Rotate minimap. Once again, turn that off because it's kind of like the other settings with the world map. Just keep it on default, make it less confusing for everyone else. Hotkeys, literally all of this is personal preference, and change your settings as you want. All right, so let's go into the UI and everything. So you want to see how I get bars like this. So when you hit your UI, this is what it should probably look like. Now, you see things over here, there's QS and CD. CD is cooldown and QS is quick slot. By default, you'll get a bunch of cooldowns and quick slot settings, and you just move them around. So for everyone who has to have things perfectly, there's a grid, and you could just line things up as like accurately as possible. And then if you auto align it, so let me show you what it looks like. So you see how this snaps on right here, right? So if you want things like with a little bit of a gap, you can do that. Or if you want to snap on to like the closest one, that's what auto align does. And if you want things to be at an odd angle, like you don't want it to snap on, but you want it like right here, turn that off. And so that's what it is. Custom HP bar. So a lot of people you'll probably see have a different health bar and UI. So this is what the OG players had, the little bars over here. And this is what new players have over here, the custom HP bar. And that's what it, let me see. Yeah. So this one versus that one, I think most people look at the center of the screen, like where your character is, the little like crosshair. And so looking down is a lot easier with your health bar being there versus at the top. I don't think this one is bad. Like I tried getting used to it, but realistically, most people just look at the center of the screen and down more. So that's why I personally like the OG one. And yeah, so also being able to see like the progress bar of everything is pretty nice. But ultimately, it's just whatever. Like you just play with the one you like the most. It's not a big deal. So yeah, that's what I have. This is how you line up things, and a lot of the quick slot ones are at the bottom, whereas my cooldowns are on here. So yep, that's also you could like turn things on and off, like have it on and off over here. And I wish you could move certain ones like the mini map and everything, but I don't know why it's just locked in like that, but it's whatever. It's not a big deal. Okay, so here are some things that I want to talk about before we wrap up. These are just kind of like performance things. Now, if you have like an AMD card or a processor versus like an Intel one, there are some things you could do, like changing the affinity. There's probably a better guide you could watch, and it'll teach you exactly what you do, so it's probably better to do that. But if you're just trying to get higher FPS in general, obviously playing on lower settings will do that. But the one thing I would recommend, if most people I would say have an NVIDIA card or like graphics card, what you want to do is just go to the control panel and, you know, turn VSync off. And it will also make sure your monitor is, you know, able, like the highest refresh rate you have. That's how you uncap it. But for the people who are like, oh, my thing is stuck at 60, uncapping it in full screen is also another option. So if you want to play windowed and uncapped, that's what you have to do. But full screen will automatically unlock it without any settings changes. Yeah, this is generally what I get. I have grind videos of me showing my FPS and everything, just with like Afterburner and everything. So if you want to see what my FPS generally looks like while in actual gameplay, not those benchmark videos that you see of just people benchmarking the tutorial. So yeah, you want to see actual gameplay with FPS on, I have videos of that. Aside from that, a lot of the settings you really have to get FPS performance is literally just turning off random things that like shadows. Shadows are always a big thing, not just in BDO, but like any game you play. That's a huge contributing factor to FPS. And then it's like having like a lot of other things off, like no far away NPCs. You really don't need to see that. So this is the personal balance that I like, that high FPS, but also doesn't look like potato. I would, if you need to use this one, it's probably okay. Just know that there's probably other ways to get the newer versions, and one is very outdated. So just keep that in mind. Chances are most people having it not applied is, you know, just working just fine. But if you need it, you could always play around with that one for frame gen and everything. But just know that you might have the weird issues with like very oddly specific problems like Magnus Well or something. I don't know if that's been fixed, but I just haven't turned this on in multiple years since I did. Aside from that, it's really just tweaking your display you could have to crop mode. So you see how if you ever watched another video or a streamer and they have like gray bars at the top and bottom of their screen, that's what crop mode is. I personally think, like, obviously it's good for performance, but if you're watching a stream for too long or something, or a video, you just want to see what things look like naturally. So yeah, I don't play with crop mode. Also, I don't really need it, but you know, it does help. It makes things a little bit wider, so you can see, like, it's kind of like playing on an ultra wide monitor, but without the ultra wide, kind of, in a way. So that's about it. That's what I wanted to show you. Those are the settings I play on, and just wanted to do an update for 2026. And with that said, I want to say thank you guys so much for watching. If you are new to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I'd love to see you come back. And we currently have a support your creator event going on. So if you want to use my code on screen, if you decide you want to purchase any A coins or pearls, or you want to upgrade your game pack, just use my code and I get a small portion of it. Always appreciated. And that's all I wanted to talk about. Thanks so much, and I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.